Mankind likes to believe that there are no monsters, that we have always ruled the world. It is not so. What the hell is that? Jeff Falco sighted down the scope of his rifle. The crosshairs were centered on a shadowy figure. The thing wasn't big, maybe 3 or 4 feet tall. Jeff doubted he'd have seen it at all if he wasn't looking through a night vision rifle scope. The scope turned the moonless night as bright as day, but only in greens and blacks. The beast had the rough, leathery skin of a lizard, but it stood upright like a kangaroo. It was motionless, slitted eyes watching a pronghorn. Pronghorns were the reason Jeff had taken this trip. He was a man of means, and he liked to use those means to hunt. Pronghorns weren't as rare or exotic as African safari, but he was in Texas already, and it was an animal he had yet to kill and eat. Jeff noticed Hector hadn't answered his question. "Hector, you seeing this?" Hector was staring down his own rifle. His face was white as a sheet. Jeff tried again. "Hector!" he whispered. The man he had hired as a guide stayed frozen. Strange. When Jeff had asked about a guide, he'd been told Hector was the best. The man was an experienced professional. Jeff had gone on enough hunting trips to know when a guide knew what he was about, and Hector lived up to his reputation. At least, he had until now. "Hector!" Jeff hissed louder. The other man started, finally tearing his gaze away from the rifle scope to stare at Jeff with wide, wild eyes. "Be quiet," Hector spoke very softly. "Don't move. We don't want to attract its attention." "Its attention?" Hector lowered his voice. "What is it?" "Something that shouldn't be this far north," Hector told him. "Stay very still, Mr. Falco." Jeff wanted to press the man for details. He decided now was not the time. He went back to looking down his scope. He saw the pronghorns notice the beast. They panicked. The antelope raced off into the night, making bleating, high-pitched caws. All but one. A single pronghorn stood facing the beast. The antelope was shaking. Its head was turned so one of its eyes could stare at the lizard thing directly. The lizard stared right back. Jeff peered closer at the creature. It was definitely a lizard, but it wasn't any kind he'd seen before. A row of short spines sprouted from its back, forming a line from the top of its head down to its tail. The pronghorn wasn't shaking anymore. Its eyes looked glazed? Stoned? Maybe it was in shock. The lizard dropped down to all fours. It stalked closer, still staring at its prey. The beast took its time. The antelope kept still. Jeff watched the lizard wander over and casually open its jaws. He didn't see the sharp teeth of a carnivore. Instead, he saw 3 fangs, 2 at the top of its mouth and 1 sticking up from the bottom. Was the lizard venomous? Did it plan to swallow the antelope like a snake? The pronghorn didn't move a muscle. The lizard's jaws closed over its throat. Its clawed forelegs reached up to grasp the antelope. Hector let out a shuddering breath. "We should go now," he said quietly, "while it's distracted." "What is it?" Jeff whispered. "It's a chupacabra," the man told him. "A goat sucker." "A chupacabra?" Jeff scoffed quietly. "You can't be serious." "I am very serious, Mr. Falco." Hector adjusted his cowboy hat. "Did you not see how it hypnotized the pronghorn? Did you not see the fangs? It's a chupacabra." "That's a myth," Jeff whispered firmly. "There's no such thing." "People said the same thing about gorillas once," Hector reminded him. "No one believed in giant squids either until a dead one was brought to shore." Jeff mulled that over. The man had a point. He read somewhere that there were thousands of species mankind had yet to discover. Maybe millions. When you put it that way, a weird-fanged lizard wasn't as much of a stretch. An idea started to take shape. Hector had come out here to kill a pronghorn, but who was to say that was all he could hunt? A lizard no one had seen before wasn't going to be on an endangered species list. Hell, if Hector killed it and brought it back, he might become famous, or famous among hunters at least, which was good enough for him. If it was just an animal, he asked Hector, why are you so scared? It is not just an animal, Hector told him. It's a chupacabra. We should go now. The lizard was still latched onto the pronghorn. Jeff hadn't paid a lot of attention to the stories about the things, but he remembered they were supposed to suck blood, like big goat-eating mosquitoes or something. Maybe that part of the legend was true. Jeff couldn't come up with any other explanation for what the beast was doing. Are they venomous? Jeff sighted down his rifle. No, senor, Hector told him, but they are very dangerous. Chupacabras don't often seek human prey, but they can easily kill a man. They are creatures of the night with the night's powers. The night's powers? Jeff nodded to himself. He wanted to know why Hector was so scared of the beast. He should have guessed the man was superstitious. Jeff was surprised to see it from such a competent professional, but maybe he shouldn't have been. He'd met plenty of competent people who believed things that didn't make sense. He knew an engineer that thought the earth was flat. It was probably a good thing. If the creature was venomous or unusually fast or traveled in packs, Jeff would be an idiot to try to kill it. Hector was clearly terrified of the beast. Knowing that his guide thought it was a magic monster made Jeff's plan seem a lot more feasible. Jeff chambered around in his rifle. The rifle was a Springfield Redline Model 2020. It was far from his most expensive gun, but he'd grown fond of it. The Redline was a bolt-action .308 with a carbon fiber barrel. The barrel was a little short, mostly so it wouldn't be too unwieldy when the suppressor was added. The gun was a rugged, reliable, and lightweight. A good mountain rifle for when Jeff wanted to hike into a place and carry everything he needed on his back. Senor, Hector hissed, don't even think it. If you pull that trigger, we're both going to die. Is that so? Jeff hesitated. Do they hunt in packs? Not always, said Hector. But even if there's only one, it will kill us. Jeff hesitated again. Hector sounded very sure. Jeff had hunted all over the world, and if there's one thing he'd learned, it was that ignoring your guide was a bad idea. On the other hand, the lizard's head would make an amazing addition to his collection. His friends would crap their pants when they saw a stuffed chupacabra on his wall. The antelope fell over. The chupacabra let go of the pronghorn's neck. It reared up on its hind legs. It turned, slitted eyes gleaming in Jeff's night vision scope. It was facing Jeff now. No, not just facing. It was looking at him. What had given them away? Jeff was laying prone, mostly hidden behind the scrub brush. He was upwind. Maybe the beast had heard them whispering? Could be. Jeff was only 200 yards away. A dizzy feeling crept over Jeff. Those eyes, they called to him, pulled him down. Dizziness swept through his body, made the gun droop. The scope dropped out of Jeff's field of vision. The dizziness went away. What the hell? Madre Dios, he heard Hector mutter. It sees us. Jeff shook himself, then sighted back in. The creature was still looking at him. Jeff shifted the crosshairs down to its chest. He breathed it slowly. He didn't draw in another breath. Instead, he squeezed the trigger. Softly. Slowly. When the gun went off, it surprised him. It was a perfect shot. Jeff felt the rightness of it, the subtle joy of knowing he'd hit the mark. The bullet took the lizard in the chest. The beast dropped, but it wasn't dead yet. Jeff saw it trying to get up. No! Hector shouted. Jeff chambered another round. He held his breath and squeezed again. The bullet struck the creature in the side, just under a foreleg. A heart shot, if Jeff was to guess. The creature fell back down to the earth, motionless. "You idiot!" Hector didn't bother keeping his voice down. The crack of gunfire would have given their position anyway. "You just killed us both. Did you not hear what I told you?" "It's all right," said Jeff. "It's dead." "It's a chupacabra, you spoiled idiot gringo." Hector swept his rifle back and forth, searching the area. "Do you really think a bullet is enough?" "Maybe not just one," Jeff admitted. He was watching the lizard. It hadn't moved. "That's why I shot it twice." He stood. "Come on, let's go collect our prize." The area was mostly flat, with the occasional rolling hill. There was a lot of grass and a few brushes. The night was moonless, but the stars provided a little bit of light. Not that Jeff needed it. He and Hector were both sporting night vision goggles. Playing with them was the main reason Jeff had insisted on hunting at night. Hector was still upset. Jeff ignored him. He waded through the tall grass, reloading his red line along the way. His guide eventually followed, muttering under his breath. Jeff thought he was cursing at first, but he looked back and saw the man was holding a rosary. Hector was praying. It didn't take long to reach the spot. Jeff saw the pronghorn. It was still lying on the ground. He didn't know if the beast had drained all its blood, but it was definitely dead. Jeff nudged it with his boot, then moved on. He'd leave the pronghorn where it lay. Jeff only wanted the animals he'd killed himself. The chupacabra was not where Jeff expected it to be. He found the crushed grass where it had fallen. He found some blood. He did not find a dead lizard. Jeff cursed. "Bastard wandered off," Jeff said aloud. He saw blood splotches and crushed grass leading away. It wasn't uncommon. A lot of animals would run off, getting as far as they could before they bled out. Tracking them down was always a pain in the ass. "We'd better follow it." "No." Hector's voice was firm. "No?" Jeff turned in surprise. His guide was a swarthy man with bronze skin and a trimmed beard. He wore jeans and flannel and a cowboy hat. His eyes were hidden behind night vision goggles, but the set of his jaw spoke of fury and fear. "You see, you're still too stupid to understand," Hector spat. "But I will try to explain one more time. A chupacabra is not a normal animal. They can do things you do not believe. Chupacabras are strong, stronger than bears. They can paralyze with their gaze. They can heal from wounds that would kill anything else. They can rend steel with their claws. These things we know they can do," Hector continued. "Legends say they can do more, that they can disappear or fly. Some believe they steal souls." He shook his head. "I don't know. What I do know is they are lethal, and they hold grudges. Antagonizing one is suicidal. Tracking after is even worse." Jeff looked down at the blood trail, then back at Hector. "It's bleeding. If it bleeds, we can kill it." "I've seen that movie," Hector told him. "It didn't go well for the men that did that." He turned and started walking away. "I'm leaving. If you want to live, you'll do the same." Jeff cursed. He wanted that lizard. He wanted its head. Then again, Hector might have a point. Jeff had shot the chupacabra twice, and it had managed to escape in the perfect silence 2 minutes later. The guide might be a superstitious whack job, but if there was even a glimmer of truth to what he said, then leaving was the right call. Tracking the beast might be like trying to hunt a tiger in the dark. More importantly, they'd driven out here in Hector's truck. Jeff would be stranded if the jerk drove off without him. Jeff hustled after his guide. The man kept his rifle tucked into his shoulder, fingers straight and off the trigger. He seemed to be trying to look everywhere at once. Hector's paranoia was infectious. Jeff found himself keeping his head on a swivel, too. It would be a 3-hour walk back to the truck. Hector set a brisk pace. Jeff saw him flinch at every rustle, even when he should know it was just the wind. The man honestly thought they'd be attacked at any moment. The guide was sure they were doomed men. It was getting on Jeff's nerves. "I should kill you, you know." Hector said the words quietly during the first hour of the hike. "Kill me?" Jeff tightened his grip on his rifle. Was his guide planning to shoot him? Jeff stared at the man's back. Probably not, he decided. Hector was still furious, but he didn't strike Jeff as a murderer. It was a good thing, too. Jeff had never shot a human being. He'd hate to have to start now. It would be the smart thing, Hector continued. The Chupacabra knows you were the one that shot it. If I kill you, it might leave me in peace. Why didn't you then? Jeff asked. Because they are vengeful, said Hector. If you die, it might still take your blood. That would be bad. Chupacabras usually hunt quadrupeds, goats and deer and such, but they've been known to eat humans that attack them. Once they taste human blood... Hector whirled, rifle pointing at a scrub brush to the left. Jeff brought his own rifle up. He saw a blur, something small and fast running away. A rabbit. When they drink human blood, they get a taste for it, Hector continued. They won't stop. Dozens will die if I let it eat you. Maybe more. Oh, Jeff lowered his rifle and kept walking. I guess you'd better keep me alive then. The rest of the trip was tense, but uneventful. Hector spent a lot of it muttering under his breath. Jeff didn't know if he was swearing or praying, but figured it was probably both. Jeff didn't like the idea of leaving without a kill. It wouldn't be the first time he'd come up empty on a hunt, but he still didn't like it. Maybe he'd go back out in a day or two in a different area with a different guide. Yeah. No, there would be no next time. Hector had been right to call him an idiot. The lizard probably wasn't as dangerous as Hector believed, but it was still a threat. It was a large carnivore, and stealthy enough that no one had proved its existence. It wasn't magic, but it didn't have to be. Bears weren't magic, but they could still shrug off a bullet and kill the hell out of you. The Chupacabra Jeff had shot might have bled out somewhere, but Jeff didn't know that for sure. It was entirely possible the thing was hunting them right now. Hector seemed to think it was. Jeff couldn't help sighing in relief when the truck came into view. The truck was a brown Toyota Tundra, an early 2000s model if Jeff had to guess. It looked old, but lovingly maintained. There it is, Jeff remarked. Hector ignored him. The guide hadn't said another word after their previous conversation. It was going to be an awkward drive back to town. The two of them clambered up the low hill the truck was sitting on top of. Hector stopped 10 feet away from it. He turned in all directions, keeping his rifle lined up with his gaze. Then he stood still, listening. A few seconds later, he finally lowered the gun. He fished in his pocket for the truck keys. A dark form slammed into Hector. There was a furious hiss. Jeff brought his rifle up. He saw Hector on the ground, the Chupacabra on top of him. Sharp claws tore open his chest and his stomach. A fanged mouth clamped on his arm and tore it off. Jeff shot it. The Chupacabra turned on Jeff with an outraged hiss. He shot it again, in the head this time. The creature paused, but it didn't fall. Jeff sent a third round up its snout, blowing out the back of its skull. The creature fell. The Red Lines magazine only held 3 rounds. Jeff switched it out, then whirled the rifle around looking for more of them. He didn't see any. He went to Hector, the Chupacabra laying across him. It was very dead. It took some effort to roll the thing off Hector. Jeff's guide was in bad shape. Hector stared up at Jeff with glassy eyes. His chest was a mass of gore. He managed to say 3 words. Stupid, spoiled, gringo. Then he was gone. Bile rose in Jeff's throat. He wasn't sure why. Jeff had personally killed and gutted dozens of animals, maybe over 100. His butchered guide didn't smell any different. Coppery blood and perforated intestines. It wasn't a good smell, but Jeff was used to it. Jeff was used to death, even liked it most of the time. He just hadn't seen it happen to another man before. He hadn't known Hector well, but he'd known him. Now he'd watched him die, and die badly. It was too much. Jeff's stomach revolted. He stumbled a few feet away and puked his guts out. Jeff considered the dead Chupacabra as he wiped his mouth. Nasty thing. Could he get it into the truck? Maybe. The lizard was 7 feet, snout to tail, but it probably didn't weigh much more than a deer. Hector's death would be a lot easier to explain if he could bring back the thing that had killed him. First things first, Jeff needed the truck keys. His stomach lurched again, but Jeff made himself dig into the dead man's pocket. He pulled out some smokes and a lighter, but no keys. Crap. Jeff's heart pounded in his ears. A little voice in the back of his head was screaming at him to get out, to run. Jeff pushed it down. He found the arm the Chupacabra had ripped off. The keys were laying a few feet away. Jeff took them. The truck started easy. The headlights came on and blinded Jeff. He took off his night vision goggles and threw them in the seat. For a moment he just sat there, breathing heavily. He had a terrible urge to just start driving, to leave Hector and the dead lizard where they lay. Jeff couldn't do that. It was his fault Hector was dead. If he'd listened to his guide and left the lizard alone, none of this would have happened. Hector had tried to keep Jeff alive, and he'd died for it. The debt was owed. Jeff would bring the body back to his family and repay them in any way he could. Jeff sat for another minute. He didn't want to go back out there. He knew it was stupid. The Chupacabra was dead. He'd seen the body. He'd seen it. He just couldn't shake the feeling it was still out there, waiting. He told himself not to be a coward. Jeff wanted to leave. He could. He just had to get the bodies. He could do it quick. Tossing them in the truck bed would barely take a minute. Then he could go. He could go back to town and never come back. He just had to do it. Jeff took one more deep breath. He let it out slow and nodded to himself. He opened the truck door. He heard a screech of tearing metal. The door was ripped off its hinges. 5 sets of gleaming eyes waited outside in the dark. Yellow, slitted. Lizard eyes that made him dizzy. Jeff heard a low hiss. He had time for one last thought as he clutched at his rifle. He'd asked Hector if Chupacabras hunted in packs. Hector had said not always. Not always meant that most of the time they did. Jeff tried to aim his rifle. He was too slow. A terrible fiery pain shot through him as claws stabbed at his leg. Jeff screamed as the Chupacabras dragged him out of the truck. He didn't scream for long.